Tonight, I'm filling in for Greg on this special edition of Gutfeld. While Greg is off cheating on us with another late-night show, I'll be your host. Let's dive into some jokes. Reports from China are saying there's a growing outbreak of a disease transmitted by mosquitoes. Naturally, an eager Anthony Fauci is hoping this will present him with another opportunity to take action. Ghislaine Maxwell recently told the Department of Justice that she never witnessed anything suspicious from Trump. This takes me back to a time when I was in need of a reference and received a glowing letter from Tanya Harding. Our very own Jesse Waters shared a story about actor Shia LaBeouf verbally attacking him at an airport lounge 5 years ago. You have to give credit to Shia. Most people don't have the patience to sit around for that long of a wait. This weekend, the Marlins and Braves will make history with the first Major League Baseball game umpired by a woman. Instead of calling balls and strikes, she'll just say we'll keep things casual with a "it's fine" approach. Sean Diddy Combs is reportedly planning a comeback at Madison Square Garden once he's free. The music mogul is aiming for a return to the spotlight after serving his time. The buzz around this potential event is growing fast. As things heat up, looks like we're in for a lot of excitement in the entertainment world. From new roles to unexpected moves, everyone seems to be making waves. This should be an interesting week to watch. A young woman in China is experiencing an unusual condition where she is constantly having orgasms, and doctors are struggling to figure out the cause. Some medical experts believe it could be related to a recent trip to China by a certain individual. Meanwhile, in the United States, a new poll reveals that Elon Musk is the public figure most disliked by Americans. Interestingly, many people have a similar feeling about their fathers. In other news, at a recent WNBA game, another sex toy was thrown onto the court, sparking reactions. One man even commented that he wished something like that could happen at his workplace. Now, moving to a more serious topic, a report from the New York Times reveals that both Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo's supporters are hoping for Donald Trump to become involved in the upcoming New York City mayoral race. They believe that Trump could help unite voters behind a single candidate, potentially preventing Zoran from emerging as the winner. Word is that Adams has offered Trump a free ticket on Turkish Airlines, while Cuomo has made an unusual offer to eliminate the senior of his choice. The media reports that a prominent figure is considering stepping into the scene, and even had a conversation with a notable individual about it. This figure, much like many others, is convinced that the current candidate would be disastrous for the city's future. Even fringe political bookstores are taking the candidate's chances seriously. The reality is, the candidate has connected with a deep-seated frustration among residents who feel that living in the city has become unaffordable for the average person. It's not just a rumor. Many have resorted to strange measures, such as negotiating with strangers for basic needs. On the flip side, there are others who live comfortably enough to take long breaks for medical procedures, treating them almost like a mini vacation. One particularly bizarre incident involved a man who couldn't stop shouting during his procedure, leading to an odd scene of chaos. It highlights a growing divide between those who struggle daily and those who seem untouched by the economic pressures that many face. It's easy to see why older generations, who remember a more affordable time, might feel frustrated. The American dream seems like a distant concept to those who are now burdened by the high costs of everyday life. Even when adjusting for inflation, life has become significantly more expensive than it was several decades ago. In fact, even though wages have increased in some areas, the cost of living has outpaced these changes. This disconnect has fueled a sense of hopelessness among many, making it clear why certain figures are gaining more attention and support. However, here's the reality. Just because this person acknowledges the anger and discontent of others doesn't mean he has the solutions. Consider it a lack of experience. He briefly worked as an organizer for 2 left-wing advocacy groups. After that, He assisted on a film directed by his mother and chose to try his hand at a music career. He even managed campaigns for progressive candidates before running for the New York State Assembly in 2020. This individual's track record is weaker than over-the-counter pain relievers. For some reason, socialism has managed to keep a better reputation than it truly deserves. Even though it's been implemented in different forms across various nations and consistently fails, it still holds a strong image. As Greg noted not long ago, when the Berlin Wall came down, it didn't just take socialism and communism with it. Humanity fled in one direction. In today's world, some people equate socialism with genuine concern for others, while opposing socialism is seen as a sign of indifference to basic human needs such as food and shelter. There's a misconception that advocating for socialism automatically means you're focused on improving lives, even when history has shown that the system often falters. For decades, these ideologies have been tested, yet the results remain unchanged, causing harm rather than helping. Despite these failures, the image of socialism continues to hold sway in some circles. It is frequently portrayed as a compassionate alternative, especially when compared to capitalism. Those who question its validity are often criticized as being out of touch or unsympathetic. This distorted narrative overlooks the numerous instances where socialist policies have resulted in economic collapse, repression, and social unrest, while simultaneously ignoring the wealth of evidence that demonstrates the superiority of free market systems in promoting prosperity. The persistent appeal of socialism can be attributed to a combination of ideological blindness and a failure to acknowledge its past shortcomings. Some individuals continue to promote it as a solution, perhaps out of an unwavering belief in its potential or a desire to be seen as fighting for the underdog. However, the reality remains. Socialist regimes often leave citizens in poverty, with limited access to basic resources and freedoms. This fundamental truth is often ignored in favor of a more convenient, idealized version of the ideology that simply doesn't hold up when put to the test. People tend to believe what Donnie says, even when his claims seem far-fetched. And before you ask, the plan is to fund this by taxing the wealthy. So, government-controlled grocery stores will supposedly keep prices down. Just look at how well that worked out in the Soviet Union. The real question is, why would anyone trust a person like him simply because he claims it to be true? The last time I blindly took someone's word for it, I ended up in an unexpected situation. Thanks, Larry Kudlow. He told me, and my husband, that pregnancy could never happen on a Saturday. Well, thanks for nothing, Kudlow. Dr. Drew didn't pick up either. It's not that those of us who oppose Donnie or socialism don't care about people's well-being or prosperity. It's simply that we understand the deeper consequences. Socialism eliminates the drive to compete, innovate, and achieve. It's like a game where the best result is always a tie. Capitalism, in contrast, thrives on incentives, encouraging growth and opportunity. We don't want to see people suffering, but we also don't want to create a system that stifles growth and progress. With socialism, everyone gets the same. But that doesn't mean everyone will flourish. It's the incentives and opportunities of capitalism that lead to improvement and success, where hard work and innovation are rewarded. It generates outcomes that are advantageous for everyone involved. The key point is that candidate Donnie would be a catastrophe for the city of New York. This is clear to all, including Trump. Who knows? Maybe he will lend his support to another candidate who might be a better fit. Moreover, unlike Donnie, Eric Adams has managed to accomplish something meaningful. For instance, he once taught parents how to conduct thorough searches of their children's rooms for drugs. It could be as simple as a cracked pipe, hidden behind a picture frame. The camera zooms in to capture the action. Behind a picture frame, you might uncover bullets. Something as ordinary as a baby doll could have a hidden purpose. It might seem like just a doll, but in fact it could be a perfect hiding spot for drugs. Additionally, pillows can be an excellent place to hide illicit items. You should always check if anything feels odd inside them. A pillow with a button, for example, could be an invitation to conceal something. I once felt something unusual inside such a pillow. When I reached in, I discovered what was hidden. This is how things can be concealed within a simple household item like a pillow. Check what's hidden in your shelves. It could be more than just mementos. A great spot for hiding something like illicit substances. That idea is timeless. By the way, I'm relieved my father never stumbled upon that clip. Let's give a warm welcome to tonight's guests. He spent months traveling across the country, looking like he missed his medication. Canadian comedian Joe Mackey, who has a bit of a quirky vibe. If you're unfamiliar with the term libuboo, just look it up. The Canadian creator of Western Razor, David Angela, is here as well. If she takes off her glasses, you know it's time for some serious action. The host of the Kennedy Saves the World podcast, Kennedy. He has a certain charm, like an old shawl that grandmothers love to drape over their shoulders. A New York Times best-selling author and former NWA world champion. I recently saw a video featuring a guy searching a kid's room for drugs in a city. Kennedy, honestly, I fear Bomb Donnie will become the mayor. I hope I'm mistaken. But somehow, it feels like socialism has unfairly acquired a reputation of merely being kind-hearted. Certainly, here's a rewritten version of the story. Some individuals who support socialism fail to understand its true history. They should talk to people who have escaped regimes like the Soviet Union, Venezuela, or Cuba, places where millions of lives were destroyed by socialism. These systems often lead to unforeseen and disastrous consequences. The leader of New York City will face these negative outcomes over time due to his flawed ideology. This is the result of poor judgment based on an idealistic but ultimately misguided view. This leader, a wealthy and privileged individual, has led a life cushioned by luxury. People like him, who have never struggled or had to work hard, shouldn't be in charge. They don't understand the consequences of their decisions and are always content to spend the resources of others. Contrast this with people like J.D. Vance, whose life wasn't defined by wealth. Growing up in a challenging environment, Vance has developed into a politician who values fiscal responsibility and believes that a limited government is a safer choice. In comparison to those raised with privilege, Vance's life and perspective make him more attuned to the real-world consequences of policies that promote government control and excessive spending. His journey illustrates that leadership should come from those who have experienced hardship and understand the value of sound, conservative governance. On the other hand, leaders who haven't had such experiences often make decisions that lead to harm and instability for those they govern. I often find myself worrying about my child's future. I hope they don't end up facing the challenges I did. The other night, as I was rocking them to sleep, it suddenly occurred to me, oh my gosh, my child might grow up to be just like me. It's a scary thought. I know I shouldn't worry too much, but it's hard not to. What are your thoughts on this, Mackie? Sometimes, I think my life mirrors a bit of how I view communism. It's like there's this huge line of women waiting for their turn, each one thinner than the last, because that's my preference. But there's simply not enough to go around. Like the government-run stores where things just don't meet the standard of quality you'd find in other places. I keep thinking, where are the Carvel ice cream cakes for birthdays? And all they tell me is that they don't carry them, calling me a capitalist pig. It's funny how those kinds of stores remind me of the whole system. Capitalism, to me, seems like the better option. Even when communists complain, their complaints almost sound like compliments. They'll say, "Rich people have their own spaceships." And I can't help but think, wow, that's incredible. Maybe, just maybe, one day I'll be able to own a spaceship too. On the other hand, when communists complain, it's often about things that seem like real problems, making their perspective feel a bit off in comparison. At the end of the day, these reflections keep me thinking about the world, society, and what we all really want. Sometimes, it seems like everyone's waiting for something that may never come, and that feeling of scarcity affects how we view everything around us. It's a strange, cyclical pattern. And I can't help but wonder how my own experiences will shape my child's view of the world as they grow up. In a time of turmoil, with hunger and chaos gripping the city, a phone call in the midst of the disaster seemed like a beacon of hope. Yet, in the aftermath, it became clear that political maneuvers and self-interest dominated the narrative. The conflict brewed in the shadows, with no clear winner, only the realization that everyone had a stake in the outcome. Meanwhile, the rich and powerful, unaffected by the daily struggles, retreated to their sun-kissed escapes. It was a striking reminder of how the system could remain intact, untouched by the consequences faced by the masses. The political situation seemed impossible to navigate, but in the end, it was all about choices and consequences. The people, whether they knew it or not, had the power to shape the future. And the choices they made would resonate for years to come. Yet, even with the potential for change, the dark specter of corruption and dishonesty loomed large. Leaders who once claimed to serve the people revealed their true intentions. They manipulated the very fabric of society, using their power to further their own agendas. There was no escape from this cycle. No way to break free from the grip of those in power. As the people cried out for justice, the rich and powerful sat in their ivory towers, indifferent to the suffering around them. It became clear that change, if it were to come, would not come from the top down, but from the people themselves, rising up to demand something better. But the people of New York were caught in a whirlwind of conflicting interests. One side claimed to prioritize safety, while the other sought to undermine the very institutions that had kept the city from spiraling out of control. The reality was that both sides were driven by power, not by the will of the people. It was a complex game of political chess, with no clear winner in sight. As tensions reached their peak, it was unclear which way the city would turn. The struggle for power was far from over, and the stakes were higher than ever before. Amidst this chaos, international tensions continued to rise. A full-scale conflict seemed inevitable, with both sides of the political spectrum drawing lines in the sand. The situation in the Middle East was especially volatile, with the Iran-Israel conflict escalating to dangerous heights. Diplomatic efforts seemed to have little effect, as each side accused the other of violations. Yet, even as the world watched with bated breath, the fragile ceasefire that had been brokered was already beginning to unravel. Trust in American diplomacy was at an all-time low, and the future of the alliance seemed uncertain. With the clock ticking, the question remained: would this fragile peace hold, or would it all come crashing down?